Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 10 and final of the Tamiya 1/48 scale Fairey Swordfish Mark II. So if you've been following along on this video, you will know that initially I started out with the intention of doing a back to basics build. And this build is by no means basic. But I should have clarified earlier on, whenever I first started with the kit, that by back to basics, I was meaning back to basics for me, to focus on seam lines and some of the basic stuff that, you know, can slip at times. But I wanted to make sure that I was getting it dialed in. So that was the whole back to basics thing. It wasn't intended to be like a beginner series or anything like that, hence my not putting a title card of Plastic Models for Beginners. So let me give the thoughts on the kit first. We'll look at it here in a little bit, but I want to discuss some aspects of it first. Number one, the kit fit together really well. It's a really good kit, and it's because of its complexity in certain areas, it's just really amazing that the kit fits together like it does. It's a really well-engineered kit, and if you follow along on the instructions and you pay attention and you don't hurry, and you don't get distracted, it's a very doable kit. For a beginner, probably not. I would not recommend this kit for a person that's just starting out. But, you know, once a person has a couple of kits under their belt, it's a very doable kit. But I'll explain why I say that here in a minute. What else? The decals. The decals on this kit were really very good. Tamiya has a reputation of having thick decals, and while that's true a lot of the time, especially on the armor kits, it seems like the decals on this kit really blended into the surface really well, and I'll point that out again whenever we look at the kit, show you what I'm talking about. But the kits are really good, the markings are good. You have 3 options, so it gives you a little bit of variety, but decals were great. I really liked them. Okay, so with all that said, let me talk a little bit about what I would have done differently had I to do it over again. So pretty much everything went together perfectly and as it should. There are a few things, though, that I would have been better off doing differently. So one of them is the holes that you're supposed to punch out using this little tool they provide. It's a flat piece of metal with a little point on it. The plastic is really thin in that spot. There's like a little square, and then the plastic inside of that square is really thin. And you just punch through it, you're good to go. So you punch through it from the inside, and then I punch through it on the outside. What I would have done was just double checked before I got anything assembled and made sure that the photo etch parts fit in those holes. Now, let me stress that those holes only need to be poked if you're using the photo etch set. If you're not using the photo etch set for the support wires and all that kind of stuff, you don't even use that tool, and you can just skip right over it. Skip right over what I'm talking about. But if you are doing it, and it is, you know, if you do it right, it's not too difficult to do. It's just, I would have test fit first and made sure that the ends of the photo etch parts fit in the holes fairly easily. So whenever they're being installed later, I'm not having to poke around with them, not trying to have to enlarge the hole after it's been assembled. So that's the first thing I would have done differently. The next thing I would have done differently, whether I use the photo etch parts or not, but especially since I used the photo etch parts, I would have assembled the upper and lower wing halves for each part of the wing. So there's 2 lowers and 2 uppers. I would have put those together, but I would not have put the top and the bottom pieces together with the supports till after I had everything painted and weathered and decaled. If I was going to weather it, you know, I would do that first as well. And the reason being is it's really hard to, especially doing the camouflage paint scheme, to get in between all those wires and all that kind of stuff with masks, or even just to, you know, airbrush it by hand. It's just, it's not very easy. Now, there are those out there watching this that may have had experience building biplanes and are thinking, possibly, well, duh, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, last time I built a biplane was around 1975, 76, maybe even 74. And that was an old Revell Sopwith Camel or something. And I didn't even paint it. I just slapped the thing together, stuck the decals on it, boom, I'm done. So, you know, that may be common stuff, but I didn't know that. But that's the way I would do it in the future. Get everything painted, because everything fits together so well. When it gets glued together, it's really easy. So those are the things that I would have done differently. Other than that, it pretty well fit the way it should. Now, getting back to the punching the holes for the supports, the bracing wires, the reason you want to make sure those holes are punched through really well is that way when you put the support wires in place, they're straight. Because if you don't get the holes punched right, or if the part doesn't go all the way down in the hole, then your wire is going to be all bowed up and not straight like it should be. So that's the importance of that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is that's the only things I'd really do differently. So I want to reiterate and I want to stress that this is a really good kit. I enjoyed building it. It fit together really well. Any problems, not really problems, but any, challenges that I ran into were of my own creation, purely just because I should have done the paint and assembly in a different order. So, I don't know if I mentioned it already. Would I recommend this for a beginning modeler? No, I wouldn't. I would not. Especially using the photo etch. And purely because of the complexity of all these supports and everything between the wings and between the wing parts and the fuselage. It could be kind of challenging. So, but if a person were to build a couple of aircraft kits, monoplanes, and just get a feel for modeling in general, then this one wouldn't be too hard to tackle. And it turns out a really nice kit. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the completed kit. All right, here it is in all its glory. Folded wings, as you can see, gives me a nice narrow bit of shelf space that I need. The only other things I added after, whoops, one of my, see, this is what you got to look out for, these supports. One of them came loose, but I just need to glue it back in. I added the antenna. I got to glue that back on there. I added the antenna. It wasn't on there. It comes from that little dot you can see down there, back to the tail, and then up to there. But other than that, everything else was done. These little tiny supports right here that hold the wing to the tail for the folded wing thing, they add a lot of rigidity to this kit. Makes it a lot sturdier. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this kit a lot. So with that, I want to send out another round of thanks, special thanks to Eric Davenport for sending me this kit. This is one of the kits that he sent me in a care package, I guess you could call it, of a bunch of different kits, and this was one of them. And it's always been a kit that I've wanted to do because I've always thought the Swordfish is a very interesting aircraft. I mean, super slow top speed, helps sink the Bismarck, just really good aircraft for something that was designed, you know, a generation before, I guess, as far as aircraft goes. So yeah, it was a really good kit. Enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun building it. So now I will post up some what you call slideshow, and you can peruse it more at your leisure. So anyway, I want to thank you again for following me along on the build of the 1/48 scale Tamiya Fairey Swordfish Mark II build. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed watching me build it and didn't get too confused or too bored with some of the really long videos that happen. But again, this is out of my wheelhouse, so to speak. Not a biplane guy, but now I am, because now that I've got one under my belt, I'll be building more. So, as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. If you have any hints, tips, comments, or anything like that, put them in the comments section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, I will see you all later.